Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on the video. Before we start, please make sure you're subscribed, and if you want to be notified every time I upload, please click on the bell. Also from now on, if you leave a good comment, there's a chance I will give you a shout out at the end of the video. Anyway, let's get started. When I was younger, I was a Boy Scout and I enjoyed camping almost every month. After high school, I fell out of the camping scene for a long time. I'm 35 now with 3 children, and camping wasn't as easy to get out and do anymore. The winter before the summer of 2017, I gathered new camping gear since I longed for a backpacking trip with my son. I was finally able to gather up enough gear to take my oldest son out for an overnight beginner backpacking trip in the Mohican State Forest in Ohio. The campsite was only about a mile and a half from the parking area, so we had time to explore some of the other parts of the park before setting off for camp. It was wet and rainy all day, and we had plenty of hopes that it would clear up before we left the vehicle. The weather radar on my phone showed slowing signs of rain, so we decided to take off and power through the small downpour. After hiking around for most of the day, in the damp and dreary weather, we were excited to get the camp set up. After my hammock and my son's tent were set up, we enjoyed some of the best rehydrated food I've ever had. Once we finished our dinner, my son retired to his tent to text his girlfriend as the sun went down. I relaxed near the fire, keeping an eye on the small storm that was approaching. It seems to have grown a little, and I remember asking if my son would be able to ride out the storm if it got a little bigger. I didn't want him to have such a horrible time that he never wants to go again. He stood up and said, "Dad, I'm not going to get scared. I'm good." After our conversation, we hung out by the fire and complained a bit about how wet the wood was. I returned to my phone to check on the storm, and by this time it was completely dark. With my phone glowing in my face, I had noticed the storm multiplied and soon became something I had no desire riding out. I kept receiving severe thunderstorm tones from my phone, so I knew it had to be something serious. I showed my son the massive thunderstorm blob creeping across my screen and toward our location. We made a quick decision in the dark to pack up camp and hope we make it back to the car. We doused the fire and started to make our way down the trail. While we were on our way down, we both began to have this incredible eerie feeling. The hairs on my arms and neck stood up, and I was filled with an overwhelming, uneasy feeling. Out of nowhere, this fog came in. We couldn't see 5 feet in front of us. Soon after, the forest went dead silent. We didn't hear any birds chirping, no wind rustling the leaves, no cars, absolutely nothing. It was so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat, and the only sound were our footsteps. The first thing that came to mind after this was that in all my years of scouting, I had never experienced a situation like this. There are only 2 things that can make a forest go quiet: a storm or a very large predator. After walking about a quarter mile in the fog, I had an instant moment of panic for no reason, and it stopped me cold in my tracks. I stood there, catching my breath, trying to listen to the woods because I had a strange feeling of being watched. I aimed my flashlight in all directions in hopes of seeing something, but nope, we were completely alone. Just as we started moving again, my son started saying how this reminded him of a scary movie he had seen. After his last word, there was an incredible sound of what I imagined would be the sound of a large tree being snapped in half. It was so loud that the ground shook under our feet. We both started running down the trail as fast as we could. I fumbled to get my keys out of my pocket, while my son kept aiming his light into the woods. As soon as I managed to open the door, we threw our bags in and jumped in. We locked all the doors and drove out of there as fast as we could. A week had passed from our trip, and on a nice bright day, I decided to go back to see what could have possibly made that noise. I made it to the section where we heard that sound. I saw a large tree had been snapped in half, like a toothpick. I thought to myself that it looked like lightning struck it, but there was no thunder to go with the sound, and the tree wasn't burned. After that, I didn't know what to think. It couldn't have been a person, a truck, or lightning, so I don't know what caused this tree to be split in half, but I don't want to find out.